Ah, hello, hello, hello. Hello?
Hey, I'm here.
All right. You look great.
Hold
You
on.
never worry
Turn-
about anything with that. Um, okay. Um, my name's Crosby. That's my first name, Tyler. I'm a student at ETSU in the bluegrass. It's called the bluegrass old time, used to be called country, but now it's roots music.
Uh-huh.
I have a class called Contemporary Survey Bluegrass, and the professor's name is Dr. Lee Bidgood. And that's what this is for, just letting you know. And we're recording it so I can use this interview for a paper that I'm going to write about the underrepresentation of the African American female in country music. And
Okay.
I hope you can explain your experiences uh, as a musician, as an artist, in your dreams, and explain to me, what, just what you were going for, and maybe what you experienced, and the positive, the negatives, and everything. And I was just going to, explain to me like I am just completely naive because
Okay.
I'm I've never been signed by a country music management or anything like that. I've had a little experience with Nashville, but I want to hear it from you.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start. So describe. Oh, and if there's anything you don't want to talk about, just whatever.
Okay.
Uh, describe what it was like to first arrive in Nashville, the music making, working with record labels, etc., but also everyday life and living in the city.
Um, okay, so I first came to Nashville when I guess I was 19. I was 18 or 19. I was one of those. Um, and I came with my two managers who were also black women.
Oh,
And
okay.
none of us had experience in Nashville at all. And so we were I first worked with Deborah Allen, the country singer Deborah Allen, and
Deborah Allen.
Deborah Allen,
Okay.
and she produced my very first demo, and my first country demo, and we met Deborah and her husband, who is also her manager, Raymond. We met them through, I believe, the guy that was our webmaster. His attorney was the same
No
attorney.
kidding.
Yeah, it was this really weird kind of 6 degrees of separation type of thing.
Okay,
And
now
go
just one
ahead.
question. Deborah Allen.
Hmm.
Did you say she was a black singer too, or?
No, no, no. Deborah Allen is a white country singer. Deborah, not Debbie Allen, but Deborah Allen. She had a song. She was very popular, very active in the 80s. And
Okay.
she had a song called Baby I Lied that won Best Country Song, I believe, in 1984.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, and she's a songwriter now. Like she wrote a few songs on Leanne Rimes' debut album,
Okay.
and um she produced my very first demo
Your
in,
first demo. Okay.
yeah, in 2000, and Lord, I think 2001.
Now, was this demo a song that you wrote, co-wrote?
No, this
What?
was a song. These were songs that she had written. These were all
Okay.
her songs.
Okay.
And so she and her husband were the first people to kind of help shop me in Nashville.
Okay.
And so they took us to record labels that they were familiar with and had relationships with. And it was the practice then, and this was the early 2000s, not like the 90s or the 80s, but they didn't show my picture when they first started shopping me. So
Oh my.
they would they would play the music for people and then see how they felt about the music. And then once they said, "Oh, I love this," or, "Who is this?" or whatever, then they would divulge that I'm me. And I ended up meeting with pretty much every major label in Nashville.
Now, one question. Uh, when you were saying, did you know that they were doing that? I mean, you're telling me that now. Did you know like
I
they were?
did.
And
I
how
did.
did that, well, like, how did that make you feel? Or did what did that make you, you know?
I felt like, how did I feel? I'll be honest with you. I just remember thinking that's weird, but
It's
if
weird.
that's what it takes, then I
Oh,
guess that's what it is. Like, I remember thinking that. But yeah, I did think it was odd. I was just like, that's really weird, but okay. And everyone's argument, and it wasn't just them, it was pretty much everybody at that time that was trying to help us, was just like, we don't want people to get caught up in, all the other stuff. We just want people to fall in love with the music. And so I was like, okay, we want people to fall in love with your voice. We want people to fall in love with you as a singer and as an artist. And so um I was like, I guess I can't argue with that. I was like, but that doesn't really make sense, but okay. Um and so that's what they did, and that's what pretty much most people did until it was apparent that I was black. Like, at a certain point, I had been in town long enough that people knew that I was black, and so people didn't do that anymore. But for those first 2 years, that was pretty
wow.
kind of.
First 2 years. Now, during those first 2 years too, you got your first initial assistance with this woman and her husband, right?
Mhm,
In, like grooming you with demos, right?
mhm.
Now, before that, I mean, you embarked on country music, right? Why don't you tell me what is this fever that you had on country music when I assume you were exposed to other types of music as well, right?
Yeah, I grew up listening to country along with pop and gospel and R&B. And so I think my generation is kind of the first generation that kind of grew up on everything, cuz MTV. And so you saw rap, you saw pop, you saw R&B, you saw, I mean, and like towards when I entered high school, you started seeing country, and that was when you could see the videos like on CMT and that sort of thing. And so um and a lot of radio stations back then, any if it made it to pop, then it made it to the radio. So like you could hear Shania Twain at the same time as Britney Spears. And so I grew up listening to all
Right,
these different music.
right,
And
right.
like, kids today don't even think about it because all the music's just kind of mixed together and played everywhere. But I think I was really that first generation that was like that. And so um I didn't think I love the music. It wasn't anything. I wasn't aiming to like knock down I had no huge aims other than like I just really loved the music and I enjoyed singing it. And I remember when I first got started, and I met my first managers, the two black women. We were originally, because I was 17 when we got started, and when we started like trying to
What
find songs, and
what were the two names of the your managers and where did you meet them? What city or state?
so I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri,
Okay.
and I met them in St. Louis. I went to high school with one of the women's younger brother, and so that's how we met.
Okay.
And I was their names are Leslie Leland, and Dana Lyons, and the name of their company was Us Girls. So for simplicity's sake, I'll refer to them as Us Girls while we're talking, having this conversation. So I met them my senior year of high school. And when I met them, they were interested in me because I was young and I could sing. And they were like, we're gonna make like a pop star out of you. Like we're gonna do because this was at the time of like Destiny's Child. This is before
Right.
Beyonce was Beyonce. This was like
Right.
1999.
Whitney was
So
already huge. Whitney was
yeah,
huge.
right. It was already like she was, yeah. So like it was like Whitney Houston, it was Mariah Carey, it was Lauryn Hill. And so that was what they originally, that was their wheelhouse. Like that's what they had priorly done, is work in pop and hip hop and that sort of thing. So their interest in me was that.
Right.
So the summer after I graduated high school, we went to New York and started recording songs with this producer that they had a relationship with. And while we were there,
Do you
I had
remember the producer's name? Rissi,
ah,
first producer that worked
I
with?
think his name was Oshunlade. I think so. I can't remember. It was so long ago. Um, but while we were in New York, I used to write all my songs in this little notebook. And so they were like, "What are you writing in your notebook?" And I said, "I'm writing songs." And they said, "Well, can we hear one of your songs?" And so I started going through the songs, and I started this song, and I said with a disclaimer, I was like, "Okay, so this is a country song." I said, "I wrote this for Reba McEntire." And they looked at each other and they're like, "You wrote a song for Reba McEntire?" I was like, "I love Reba McEntire." So I started singing this song and they were just like, "Rissi, that's your thing." They're like, "You like country
Oh,
music?"
that's interesting.
Yeah, I said, "I love country music." And they were just like, "Why didn't you tell us that?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't think that you got, I don't know. I didn't think that y'all were interested in that." And they were like, "No, you sound great. And like, this is your thing." And so they were the ones that really kind of encouraged me, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't ever see young Black women doing country music. So I didn't think
Absolutely.
that was a thing.
Right.
I didn't like, no one ever told me I couldn't. I just didn't think it was a thing, because I was like, if it was a thing, somebody would be doing it.
So they decided to, they shifted course and said, let's go to Nashville. Is that
Yes.
what happened? And they came with you too.
Yeah.
So you all stayed, did you all stay together in one apartment or something like that? Or what was it?
So those first years, we lived in Atlanta together. We got they bought a house, and well, not bought a house. They rented a house, and I lived in the house with them. And I would drive from Atlanta to Nashville
Oh, wow.
and write. So like after we met Deborah and her husband, and they recorded the demo on me, and we started taking meetings and started meeting people, um I ended up writing a lot. Like people were interested in writing with me, so I started
Right.
writing.
Now, how did you get hooked up with? You say so. You didn't really live in Nashville those first 2 years. You were just commuting back and forth and staying there for a weekend or whatever, or something
Mhm.
like that. Now, how did you get hooked up with these writers? And did you go to clubs there and perform, or what what was your activity like at that time?
So you have to understand, I was extremely green. Like this is like straight out of high school. So I was learning how to play the guitar at this time.
Right? You never even, you just started learning the guitar at that moment, right?
At 18, yeah. But I
Wow.
had played the piano before. So I
Oh,
played the piano as well. So it wasn't like it was like you've never played an instrument, now here's an instrument. Like I knew piano, and when I learned that piano was kind of laid out, I mean a guitar is kind of laid out the same as a piano, then that helped to speed up the process. And so I left college, because I had started college while we were doing all this, while we were recording this.
okay. What were you studying in college? What were you studying?
I'm not even music. I was a communications and marketing major.
Okay.
But I only went to school the first year and then I left after my freshman year. But okay, so I'm trying to make sure I have the chronological, like again, this was like 20 years ago. So okay, so we did the demo in New York and then ended up completely changing course. We didn't even finish that. I recorded maybe 2 songs and then we completely reversed course. And then we met Deborah and her husband that summer. And I started working with her and writing and working on the demo, and we recorded the demo. And she asked me, are you interested in writing? And I was like, yeah, I write. And so she and I started writing together, Deborah and I. And then another kind of 6 degrees from separation relationship happened. And this was through an attorney. And the attorney had my demo, and the attorney gave it to their clients who were a publishing company in Nashville called Song Planet,
Hmm.
and gave them my demo. They were interested and they were like, yeah, we'd like to have a meeting with her. They were producers and publishers. And so we took a meeting with them, and they ended up giving me my very first publishing deal.
So what was that? What was a publishing deal like? What did you get advance money or what was the deal?
So it was because I was so green and because I was just starting out, I did not get an advance. It was almost like a training type of situations. Like sometimes in record with record companies, they'll give an artist what they call a demo deal. And so it's not like a real record deal. It's not
Right,
a full record deal. It's
right.
just basically like, let's
Let's
try some
see what
songs.
happens. Let's see
Yeah,
what
see
happens.
what
If we
happens.
get something, we'll sign you. If we see a hit in it or something like that, we'll.
Exactly. So that's what this publishing deal was. This was more of like let's develop her as a writer. And then once we see what happens after a few months, then this will kick in and become a real publishing deal.
Now, as a writer, what goes into, shaping a obviously it's a commercial songwriter, correct? I mean,
Yes.
what are they telling you, in terms of writing or in things like that? Or uh, you mostly did you mostly collaborate with others, or did you
Oh
write
yeah,
all by.
I was writing with other people. And so what we did was I was really fortunate because my publishers were they were really great people. And it was a great training ground for me. And so one of the first things that they asked me was make a list of all the songwriters that you want to write with, like all the people that you're interested in, artists and that sort of thing. And like I had already had like this long,
Yeah,
mile long list.
well, give me a little bit of your little list of.
Like I wanted to write with Lord. Shay Smith was one of the people that I wanted to write with. And um I'm sorry. Like I'm
uh,
trying to think like that time. It's been so long. Hold on. Jamie O'Neill was an artist that I wanted to write with. I'm a huge Jamie O'Neill fan, and her first album was one of my favorite albums, and I wore it out. And I uh, I wanted to write with pretty much everybody that wrote on that album. And so I'm looking up who wrote on that album because that's who I wanted to write with. Like track listing. Like Shay Smith, I wanted to write with Lisa Drew. I wanted to write with Annie Roboff.
mhm.
Um Keith Stigall, I wanted to write with him. People like that. And so my publishers started, reaching out to these people. and saying, you know, do you have any interest? We're working with this new artist, and she's a great singer. She's kind of a new writer, and so, you know, and they also put, so I got to write with a lot of those people, and like Shay Smith in particular, and a gentleman by the name of Ed Hill. He wrote "It Matters to Me" for Faith Hill, and so the three of us wrote like about 10 songs, and half of them ended up on my debut album. And in addition to the artists that I wanted to write with, and the songwriters that I wanted to write with, my publishers would put me with people that they thought might bring something out of me or might teach me something, and they put me with a lot of their the writers that were also signed to the same publishing company. And so like there's a singer by the name of Sarah Buxton, um, and she and I were signed around the same time, and we used to write together. And another woman by the name of Sarah Majors, who was a signed artist at the time, um, she and I wrote together. We still write together. Like she's
Oh,
still,
that's fantastic.
yeah, a friend and all that. And so, yeah, so I learned how to sit in a Nashville co-writing session, and kind of the give and take that it takes to write a song, and knowing what's a good idea and what's not a good idea, and just knowing how to negotiate in a setting where there's three of us or two of us,
Mm,
and just kind of like, okay, I don't like that, but I think maybe this could go somewhere, or vice versa, and like not taking it personally, and um just trying to figure out what's best for the song.
right.
And I learned so much in those first few years. Like, I you know, it's one thing to sit in your bedroom and write a song. It's a whole other thing to sit in a setting with other creatives and come up with something together that you love.
Right.
So I learned a lot about like my voice, and like about, meaning my internal voice, like who is Rissi and what does Rissi have to say and what does Rissi want to talk about and how does Rissi say these things. And yeah, it was I mean, I consider that college. Like that was college for me.
Mm, interesting. Now, were there any negative experiences in this interaction? I mean, uh, were there other African American collaborators that you were working with that?
No, I didn't write actually with my first I didn't write with another black country writer until, Lord, maybe 6 or 7 years into
Wow,
being
wow,
an artist. Yeah. And it was Anthony Smith. And
Anthony Smith.
yeah.
Now, what was what was that inner thing going? Well, everything was completely, I mean, we can, I could only imagine if all I did was write with, and I was the only person in, whether it be I was writing with foreign people or what, it's a different kind of feeling. Any kind of things go on during that time that were negative, positive, what, if you can.
Um I I'll be honest with you. Like, part of the reason why I'm still friends with most of those people, most of the like my publishers, I still have a great relationship with them.
Oh,
Even
okay.
though we're not working together anymore. Like they're still, I consider them like family. Um and a lot of the writers that I wrote with at that time, I still write with, or I'm still in contact with.
That's great.
I was very insulated in that situation, and I think, and I'm very thankful, because they treated me like they treated all the new artists, and they tried to get the best for me. And they I mean, like I used to stay with them. Like when I would come to Nashville, I would stay with my publishers in their house, like with their children, and like eating dinner with them, and like that
Right.
sort of thing. And so, yeah, they treated me, that group of people treated me like family, and they really took care of me. And
Well,
yeah.
now their objective was to get you signed and
Yeah.
also try to get a hit out of you or a
Yes.
charting song that was covered by an artist. Any of those things would have been the end result. Did you get any cuts?
I was the queen of the hold. I had lots of my
Oh,
songs put on hold. And like I even like a couple of them even got recorded.
right.
I remember for the album that ended up becoming Fireflies for Faith Hill, I had 3 songs on hold for that album. And I had a Reba McEntire hold as well. And but they ended up not making it to the final cut, but there was interest, and so it was showing that yeah, she is a good writer.
And it was
Yeah.
and it was reassuring to your publisher
Yeah.
and everything else. Um, so did you what about live performing at this time? What was the deal with live performing? Were you going out with a
So,
guitar and doing writer things like the Bluebird or whatever? And
so I didn't do the Bluebird until after I was signed.
oh,
But I did, yes, I did do writers' nights, and I remember I played Tootsies a couple times, like in the back room.
this was during that 2 year period, the early.
This was during the so from the age of 19 until 26. I wasn't signed until I was 26. And
Right.
so for those 7 years, I
Yeah.
was writing and I was playing writers' nights, I was playing coffee houses, um, pretty much anything that I could. Like it was mostly like little small stuff like that. And in that time, we left my managers and us girls and I left Atlanta and moved to New York for a couple of years. And
Okay.
but the constant thing in that whole time was that I would spend 2 weeks in New York and then I would spend 2 weeks in Nashville every month. This is back when Southwest was only like $30 to catch a flight. And
Mhm.
so I worked a retail job in New York to
No
survive.
kidding.
And I used to sing demos at night
Mhm.
for like commercials and television shows and stuff like that to make ends meet. And then I would buy my plane ticket and I would go to Nashville, stay with my publisher, and write every day, 2 co-writes a day for 2 weeks. And then I would come home. And
Hmm.
that's what we did.
Hmm. Now, so there wasn't a lot, like some artists go through the, the apprenticeship of playing the clubs or playing like Broadway and, playing 4 hour sets 4 nights a week. That wasn't part of your training ground in the sense in that first 7 years?
I mean, yeah, I did that stuff. I sang with wedding bands. I sang, yeah. I
Bar
mean, I just
band?
didn't do it. I didn't do, because I didn't like permanently move to Nashville
Mhm.
and like have a residence until I was 26.
Okay.
And so I didn't do it on Broadway, but I did it on Broadway, like in New York.
Everywhere,
Like,
everywhere else you
yeah,
did.
I used to
Top 40
play.
band. What kind of bands did you play in? And
I sang I sang in a wedding band. And so we had to pick all of our music. And so it was like either old, like
right.
I used to do like standards, or I would do like the Shania Twain stuff and like that kind of thing. And
Now, did you ever ask yourself? I know you were young, and you're dreaming. What was your goal? Incidentally, I mean, what did you really what what did Rissi Palmer want to be? What is it?
Reese,
Rissi?
Reese,
Rizzy?
Reese, like Reese.
Rissi?
Mhm,
Rissi?
mhm.
What did you Rissi? What was it that you wanted to be?
I want to be a superstar.
Right.
At that time it was Shania Twain and Faith Hill. I wanted to be that.
Gotcha. Okay. So what was the reaction? I mean, obviously you might have when you interacted with people, I'm probably not the first person. A publisher probably said to you, "What do you want to be, Rissi?" You know what I mean? Did you just state it like that? And what were their reactions to that?
I mean, everybody, of course, like, oh, okay, great. Like, that's sweet. Like, I mean, I think what you're asking me is what was the reaction that I would get from people when I would tell them I wanted to be a country singer, superstar. Most people looked at me like I was crazy. 99% of the people looked at me like I was
And
insane.
99% of the people looked at you crazy. And so what was your battle defense? What was your shield? What were you saying to yourself to all this sort of uh, looking at you crazy?
I mean, I guess it's just a part of my personality. Like if you tell me I can't, then that makes me want to do it even more. So I didn't, it didn't bother me. I mean, it was just funny to me that I think it's always been funny to me, and especially now, how we've bought this whole narrative that country music is only for white people. And that was always just so interesting to me. I was just like, but why? Like I never understood why. I was just like,
Why?
we
Why?
sing anything else, like why?
Well, why? Tell me why. What is the why in it?
I think that we have bought, like, I think it's just as simple as we've bought a narrative that was sold to us. And the best marketing on earth was separating black music and white music, and it stuck. And so we've just always believed, like, one of the statements that I hate more than anything is when people say that country music is white man's blues. No, it's not. And it's like it's I mean, hell, it's a mixture of all those things. Like, country is, I say this on the show all the time, it's the most thoroughly American art form that there is.
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is because everyone that came to this country, whether you were brought here voluntarily or involuntarily, contributed something to what makes country music country music.
That's beautiful.
Whether,
That's beautiful.
African people brought banjo and brought, a lot of the early songs were based on work songs that enslaved people were singing in the fields. Celtic people brought things. People from Europe brought, you know what I mean? And Native people and Latinx people have contributed to it. And so it's so all of us. Like, there's not one person that could say I don't have anything to do with this. Like, it includes all of us. And so it's really funny to me, and, like, not funny haha, but, like, funny in a sad way, that we've allowed marketing to exclude everyone and make something exclusive that really isn't.
Now, you got signed. Why don't you tell me that process and what happened? What your career in that? What the mainstream goal or whatever. Why don't you go through that whole process with me and explain
Lord,
what?
okay. I'm
Just
trying to think how to make it a Cliff Notes version of everything. Okay. So, 2006. I'm 25. My managers, us girls, and I met a gentleman by the name of, oh my God, it's gonna come to me in a minute. I can't remember it, but just for the sake of, we'll just say, ran into this guy.
Was it in Nashville or in a
No,
different?
this was not in Nashville at all. So so let me set the context. I'd been in Nashville at this point off and on for 7 years, and writing. I was writing with everybody. I had met with every record company. I had been offered a demo deal from a major label, and that was it. And it was feeling like a dead end. Like, it was feeling like nothing was going to happen in Nashville. I had been offered a deal from Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam, but it was for a pop deal, and I ended up turning that down.
Mm.
And And not because I didn't love them or like, respect them, but I knew that that's not what I wanted to do. And at this point, I had been in Nashville for so long, it was just like it would be a waste of all the time that I spent if I were to take this deal and do something completely different. So, yeah, I was just kind of everybody was just kind of at a stalemate, and it was just like I don't know what the next thing is. And so Bernard Alexander, that's his name. Okay. So my managers and I were living in New York, and I don't remember how my manager Leslie met Bernard, but she met Bernard, and he was saying to her, I'm working with a record label out of Atlanta. I'm helping to set up this independent record label called 1720. And yeah, and so you have an artist? And she says, yes, I do have an artist, and she's a country artist. And he was like, oh, you manage a country artist? And she says, yes. And she shows him my picture, and he was like, this girl sings country. And she says, yes. And so he takes the demo, because I don't think he believed her. And he took the demo, and the next day he calls her, and he's like, holy shit, she sings country. And he was like, this is crazy. I have to introduce you to my guy. I have to introduce you to the guy that's running 1720. Like, this is unbelievable. So long story short, he sends the demo, and the gentleman's name was Terry Johnson, who owned 1720 Records. And he sends it to Terry. Terry listens to it. He loves it, and he wants to have a meeting. So Terry flies us all to Atlanta, where 1720 was based. And he and Bernard take us all out to dinner, and meet us, and like we're talking, and he asked me basically what you ask, what do you want? And I was just like, I want to sing, I want to write, and I want to be a star. And so after our initial meeting, he takes another meeting with just me, without the managers, and we sit and go to lunch and talk. And he says, I'm going to offer you a deal. He was just like, I really like who you are as a person, and I like your music. And so, yeah, I want to help. So we sign the deal, and we immediately start working on my debut album. So all those songs that I'd been writing up until this point are now in play. All the songs that Faith Hill put on hold and didn't record, all the songs that Reba McEntire put on hold and didn't record, like now I'm going to record them.
Yeah, you did.
So we start looking for a producer, and I wanted Nashville people. Originally, I wanted Keith Stegall to produce it, or Paul Worley, because I was a big Dixie Chicks fan. And so I was like, either one of those guys, I'm good. Like, I would love that. And then I'd also met two gentlemen by the name of Shannon Sanders and Drew Ramsey, who produced, Lord, India Ari, Robert Randolph and the Family Band, and all these different people. And I love them. Like, I love their style, because I felt like it was me. It was a mixture of R&B and gospel and country. And so I was like, I want them to produce the album too. And so we were reaching out to people, and my managers had a relationship with a gentleman by the name of Corey Rooney. And Corey Rooney was best known for Destiny's Child and Mariah Carey, and not country at all. And so they wanted him, and I was like, I don't want him. And they ended up pushing and getting Terry Johnson, who owned 1720, to go with Corey and make Corey executive producer, which I wasn't happy about, but ended up being a good thing, because under Corey was a gentleman by the name of Dan Shea. And Jessica Simpson did a country record at the same time I was recording my first record. And they were working on Jessica's country album. And so they had all these tracks, and they were building all these tracks. And one of the tracks that Jessica ended up not using ended up being my debut single. It was Country Girl. And it was just a track. And so Dan gave me this track, and he says, Do you think you can write something to this? And I was like, yeah. So we sat down, myself, Sarah Majors, and Shannon Sanders, and wrote what became Country Girl.
So how did all that? So you got the record made, and so what went into the marketing when you were ready to debut the record? You know, what was the plan with the record label, and you know how to introduce you to the country music world? What you have to go through? You know.
So the lead up to releasing Country Girl was probably the hardest part of this whole thing, because it was trying to figure out exactly how to present me. Because all these years we've been told that, well, we want them to fall in love with your music first, not with what you look like or anything like that.
Oh,
So we're sitting in meetings and we're having meetings about my hair. Like, I've been wearing my hair naturally since I was 17 years old. And it was a lot longer and bigger then. And you know, people were debating about whether or not me having my natural curly kinky hair was going to be too much for country music listeners. And we actually had meetings where we discussed whether I should straighten it or whether we should add pieces to it and that sort of thing. And I actually did a photo shoot wearing wigs, like straight wigs, and to get this look that everybody was looking for. They were like, you know, Beyonce has straight hair, and Faith Hill wears long pieces and stuff, and so we want you to have that sophisticated look. This isn't sophisticated.
sophisticated.
This isn't sexy. Yeah.
Sophisticated. So what does sophisticated mean?
I guess sophisticated means like 10 bags of straight hair on your head. I have no idea. But we did that. And then thank God, one of the publicists at the record label suggested, let's just do a photo shoot with Rissi's hair and let's see how it turns out. So they let me style myself. This photographer let me style myself. And I wore my hair, wore my own clothes. And those ended up being the press pictures. Those ended up being the first pictures that anybody saw of me. Because, you know, amazing, but like letting Rissi be herself is probably the best way
Right.
to do this.
So what was the industry reaction? What, I mean, if you would summarize, you know, your first release, your singles and stuff, what was like some of the reactions that you were getting, positive and negative at that point when?
Well, so I have to tell you the story of the video, because the video is kind of paramount to this whole thing. So at that point, I had fired Us Girls, and I had hired a manager, David Sonnenberg. And David Sonnenberg is known for Black Eyed Peas and
Wow.
John Legend. And so David, I had this high power manager, and I just knew that everything was going to be great. This great manager. So we sat down and planned what the video was going to look like for Country Girl. And everybody had different ideas. And we met with this, with the videographer, Kristen Barlow, who's amazing and still a good friend of mine. And she had this very stylized, pictorial, editorial like idea for the video, and eventually what the video ended up looking like. And so she brought this idea, and I loved it. And we were just sitting there, and David, my manager, did not like it. And he was like, I feel like we need to confront the race thing. And I was like, but we are confronting the race thing, because the idea for the original treatment was to just show all these different people in all these different places, and they're holding up signs saying where they're from. And basically the theme of the song is that you don't necessarily have to fit this box to be a country girl. And I thought that was brilliant. And so we were going to find all these different people in Memphis, and like it was going to be colorful, and we're dancing, and like my grandmother was going to be in it and all that. And he didn't like it, and he wanted it to be a more overt confrontation of race. He wanted there to be a point where I walk into an all white bar and the music stops and everybody turns around and stares and like all that kind of, and we're like, this is a terrible idea. No, we're not doing this. And so we ended up overriding him. And needless to say, my relationship with him was ended after that. Um, but there was a lot of like back and forth as to what it should all look like. And so we just finally shot the video, and the video that is now the video is what we came up with. And the reaction to it, like CMT played it right away, which was great. And radio wasn't, it was a harder sell for radio. Like
Mm.
at the point that we released the video, we had been working the song for almost 9 months at that point.
Wow.
And like working it at radio, meaning like I was
Wow.
going on a radio tour.
Right.
And
Just to get them to open an ear to it even, right? Yeah. Wow.
so it took us a year and a half to even chart.
Wow. Wow.
And you know, radio tour was a really interesting thing. There were a lot of really great people that championed me. And then there were some that like just outright were like, don't even bring her to the station. Like, cause we're never gonna play her.
And
And
what was the reason they were never going to play her? I mean,
so,
what was underneath that?
well, I mean, it was underlying. He was just like, I'm never playing a black woman on my radio
Okay.
station, so don't even bring her by.
Okay.
And there were people that would humor us and take the meeting and sit and that kind of thing. And then they're just like, yeah, so I hope you know we're not going to play this, but it was really nice meeting you. And it was really interesting. And like a lot of authenticity tests. I remember I went to a radio station once, and while on the air, they started playing these really obscure old country songs to try to see if I knew who they were, if I knew what it was. Because the assumption in the very beginning, and I never thought about this until it came up, was that I was using country music to get to pop.
Oh, wow. 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 That's
So
interesting.
we would get a lot of people asking that. So like, what is it that you really want to do? Like, are you really trying to, do you want to be a pop singer? And I'm like, no, I want to be a country singer. And they're just, but their assumption was is that I wanted to use country to get to this other thing.
Wow. That's the authenticity thing. We've done a lot of talks about the authenticity because it actually does come off, and you're they wanted to make sure that you were real country. Is that you're authentically?
That I really was country and that I really wanted to be there. Like that I wasn't using this, like using basically the fact that I'm a black woman and I'm a rarity to get attention. And then once I
Right.
get attention, then move over
They
to pop.
wanted to see that you weren't just using country for your own ego or whatever to get into to be the next pop sensation.
Yeah.
Now,
Which is like insane. Like, like this is the worst marketing. That's the worst marketing idea ever.
yeah, that
But
would be kind of ridiculous to try to be the first to use country for that. What you had to go through to
yeah.
get anywhere in country music. I think I've got like I made this for an hour recording
Okay.
that started at 2, so I don't know if it's going to shut off at 3. But so what ended? So did you? What ended your mainstream? Your whole centered in with a label and everything like that. And did you just kind of leave that world in a sense, or what
Um,
kind of happened?
I got tired of, so the relationship, the business and personal relationship with the label soured by 2009, and it was blatantly clear that I was just a product, I wasn't a person. And I got tired of being treated that way, and I got tired of like really bad business decisions being made on my behalf, and I decided to leave. Um, the final straw was actually no air. I didn't want to record no air. And I was told that I
Oh,
should just shut up and do what I was told.
oh, really,
Yeah.
really?
And so that was it. And my new manager, a gentleman by the name of Ron Gilliard, um, a black man, and he and I and my attorney sat down and tried to figure out how to get out of this situation. And the only recourse that I had was to file bankruptcy. And so
Oh,
in
wow.
2010, that's what I did. I filed bankruptcy, and the record company disputed it, and we ended up having to go to trial. And
Oh,
so,
God.
and they wouldn't release me, and they weren't going to let me record a second album. They were going to just have me record songs and add them to the first album and re-release the first album again. And yeah, so we had to go to trial. The trial didn't happen until the end of 2009, and I was released in January of 2010.
Wow. Wow. And then we start the new journey of
Yeah.
taking it into your own hands or whatever. And is that
Yep.
where it's come to today? And
Yeah, and I've been independent since then. I've been independent since 2010.
what have you been? I mean, have you focused on the country? Uh, the,
Um,
the the same thing
well,
you were kind of going for, or
so people don't realize this. It's extremely expensive to have a song on country radio. And country radio has a stronghold on the charts, on your eligibility to be nominated for awards, everything. And so, as an independent, I knew I didn't have $1 million to throw into a radio tour or anything like that. So I just focused on playing live. And so I make albums primarily so that I can take my band out and go on tour. My music is, because I don't have a record label and I don't have to think about radio, I've been able to be very experimental with
okay,
my music. And so, like my last album, Revival, I don't think of as a country record at all. It's a, I don't know, it's got elements of country, but it's not a country record. Um, like, I have horns on it, and like there's just a lot
mhm,
of really cool things that we were able to
okay,
do, and it's because I was free to do it. But my projects before then, like the Backport Sessions, is a country project. I did a Christmas album, that's a country project, and I did a children's album, which is it has like some country stuff on it, but it's not a country record. It's just a children's album. But no, I just branched out because, like, aside from the radio thing, like everybody that, loved me and was, "Oh, Rissi, you're amazing and you're so great and we want to work with you and we want to do this with you." When I left the record company, like nobody called. Nobody reached out, nobody asked if they could help, nothing. And so I left. Like I left Nashville because I was like, what is there here for me? And I had an agent. I was signed to CAA. I ended up leaving CAA. Um, I had a modeling deal contract with IMG, ended up leaving them. Um, I had a television pilot that aired on the Travel Channel in 2009. And they ended up not picking up the option because of all the drama that was going on with
oh,
the record label. So, like, I had to start from scratch. And I did it mostly on my own, just me and my husband.
wow. And are you happier as an
Yes.
independent artist? Um,
I am. I mean, because everything is happening on my terms, which is like all you can ask. Like, I have this radio show with Apple Music, and that came about because of my relationships outside of the business, just relationships that I had with people. And um, I'm now a correspondent with CMT on the Hot 20 countdown.
God,
And I've done all of these things without having a record deal, without having a manager, without having an agent. Like, these are just relationships that I have and that I've been able to develop, and people just reaching out. So yeah, it's wonderful to be able to do things on your own terms. And while there were a lot of really terrible things that happened during my record deal and all that, I'm thankful for that time as well. I'm thankful for those 7 years that I was just kind of trying to figure out, someone sign me, help me, please. Because I learned how to be a songwriter. I learned how to advocate for myself. I learned what I didn't want in business. I learned how to do a lot of this stuff on my own. So I took a lot of those lessons and I just poured them into doing this myself.
Now, what is Nashville like now after the George Floyd deal in your terms, and where do you think it's going with with African American females in country music?
I don't know where we're going with African American females. I'll be honest with you. I wish that I was more hopeful, but it took Mickey Guyton 10 years to be able to put out
Yeah,
an album.
yeah, yeah.
And
And right now she's what? She's 30 something years old. So
she's
almost
37 years old. Yeah.
that's
We're around the same age. And so it's just like I just happened to start earlier than she did. But like, yeah, it's Mickey got everything that she got because she fought for herself. It wasn't because her record label was even fighting for her. Like she fought for herself. And currently it's just her and an artist by the name of Tierra that are signed to Nashville record labels. And there's a ton of Black women that are out here doing country music. I mean, I talk to them on my show. I've given them grants. So like I know that they exist. So I don't know what
I
Nashville's
got
gonna.
another question for you. I mean, if we took a look at all the other genres of music, especially if we even go back where we see Motown, a black owned, business. And at the time he said, the only reason I'm doing it is because I can't get it, I'm not going to make it in the white pop world. I'm going to do it on my own. Why the hell hasn't there been any organized black labels for country? It's like non-existent.
So that's a great question. And I'm gonna say this. Back in the 1990s, there was the Black Country Music Association started by Dr. Cleve Francis and Frankie Staten. And they did amazing things. They organized showcases. They had workshops for artists. They at one point had a pilot for a television show. Like they were doing great things. The thing that was missing was money. That takes money. Who has capital? Like who, you know what I'm saying? Who traditionally has the capital in order to do something like that? It's not Black people. And
Well,
so, especially
corporation.
not, yeah, right. And
But
so,
but but when we go into, but we can go into hip hop, and we could see that records were being made in the
oh
bed.
yeah.
We
I
were
mean,
ma-
a lot of that was hustle money and like that sort of thing.
right,
That
right.
started that. And like it's a different part of it too is like hip hop is a different animal. Like the way you get in with hip hop is very different than the way you get in with country. Like with hip hop, you can do shows at clubs, you can do things on YouTube, you can do things on TikTok or on Instagram, and even back then you just do shows at clubs and you sell CDs out of the back of your trunk, and that's how you get a groundswell. And then all of a sudden then the record companies come like, oh shit, they're making millions of dollars just on their own. Whereas with country, how do most country artists make it mainstream?
Hit
Country radio.
records, hit records,
That's just they
hit,
radio has a stronghold on
hit
country.
records.
And so like if you don't have the records that are playing on the radio, then you basically don't exist.
Right, right.
Like you exist, you can forge a great living because I know a lot of artists that are like that. You can forge a great living. You can tour, you can do all kinds of things. Cafe Anderson is a great example of this because he's not signed and he's not played on the radio either, but he's making a great living. However, he is the exception, he's not the rule. And so if you don't have the support from from radio, then you can press all the records you want to.
Now another question again. All during this time, if we go from the 60s up till today, all we've ever seen is African American females in every other genre, superstars. You got Tina Turner, who conquered rock with Jimi Hendrix, with you got Aretha Franklin, you got the staple singers, you got Beyonce, you got Rihanna, you got all kinds of huge superstars. And this genre has not had one.
So I think that there's a lot of race politics that play into this. And I didn't realize it at the time, like when I was younger, when I was trying to do it, but I see it now. For the same reasons that Black women are the least chosen on dating apps, and Black women are the least chosen, yeah, of all races, it goes white women, white
This,
men.
I almost got engaged and married once. It was to an African American woman.
Right.
I guess I should have married her.
Listen, I love us. Like I think we're the bomb.
I'm
But
with you.
but in our society, in our culture, in a lot of ways, we're not we're fetishized, and we're not valued.
Where do okay? What do you? We know. Okay, what do you think that comes from the past and today? Why
Oh,
today?
that's what it started from the very beginning.
Right.
And so it's just like, everybody's always like, oh, slavery was 400 years ago. Why are we still talking about it? Because we're still affected by the mindsets of these things, and we all are. Like it's not just Black people that are affected by it. It's all of us are affected by those mindset.
Yeah, I mean,
So
if
yeah,
everything you look in media, if you put on the television, you see diversity. You see all kinds of diversity of all ethnicities now. There isn't a TV show, a commercial that doesn't come on that doesn't have diversity. And what are the gatekeepers that are keeping this out of country music? And I'm also, I go to the bluegrass. I'm in the bluegrass. We don't even want to. Why don't you tell me your feelings about bluegrass if you have any?
I mean,
that could be even.
You know who I think a great, I don't even have to say it because she said it. Rhiannon Giddens, in her speech, I believe it was maybe 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years
Yeah,
ago.
I read it. The
She hit the nail.
IBMA. Yeah.
Yeah, she hit the nail on the head. So I don't even have to go there because she went there. The gatekeepers, that's a great question. I think that there is no great incentive for them to change because they make millions of dollars already. Look at what just happened with Morgan Wallen. He said something and fumbled this whole thing PR wise, if you ask my opinion. But they didn't need to do anything because look at what happened to his sales. Look at what happened to his sales immediately after this. Like the record was already doing well, but they went up 80%.
Up the roof. Yeah.
The following week after the whole thing broke. And so there is no incentive to change. Like we can tell them, but there's like at the end of the day, the music industry, like every other industry, is a capitalistic industry. And the bottom line is the bottom line, which is money.
Right.
And if I'm making millions of dollars hands over fist with possibly racist artists and mostly men, mostly white men, why do I need to change? What do I need to change for? So the only thing that can make that is going to change things, change the course of things, is like a Black woman coming out of the gate selling millions of records. That's the only thing that's going to change. Because otherwise we're just screaming, hey, look at us, pay attention to us. But the first person that figures out how to sell 1 million records without the help of country radio and without the help of the industry is going to be
will be God. Will be God.
Right. The second coming.
Right.
Because it'll just be like, and then everyone will go out and get one.
Got you.
Because that's how the music industry works.
Got you. Well, that's how the country music industry works.
But that's how the other industries work as well. Because if you notice, Beyonce was like a singular sensation. Like Beyonce was like Whitney Houston on steroids because she was young and it was hip hop, and it was all these other things other than just elegant, beautiful black woman in a gown singing beautiful songs. Like she was dancing, she was doing all the stuff. And so now, like immediately after that, everybody went out and tried to get one. Everybody tried to sign one. And then when they weren't successful, then they stopped signing them. Like how many big black female pop stars are there right now? There's not very many. You only get one. It's like the hip hop industry. You get Megan Thee Stallion, you get Cardi B, you get Nicki Minaj. That's it. So it's the whole industry. Like country doesn't have a lock on it. Country's the most obvious, but the whole industry is like that.
Interesting. And the plight of alternative music genres and categories such as Americana, which also, everybody gets their own industry. But, if you take the punk movement of the 80s that just went completely against, the stadium rock bands and in a sense got a victory. And these weren't even these weren't even really skilled musicians. These were like when we started playing guitar at 18 but a lot of them didn't even have their musical background. What do you think about things like that, which is sort of kind of hip hop in its initial stages? When you say like in the early 80s, just, doing it very raw and simple and crude with things like that.
How do I feel about punk music?
No, genres like that kind of take it, they kind of become anti-corporate, and they build a name on themselves by taking that stance, by being completely.
I think as my grandmother would say, it takes all kinds to make a world. And so yeah, I think that there's room for all of it. I think the thing that bugs me is that Black artists or people of color, marginalized people, don't always get the freedom of being unpolished.
Right.
Yeah, we don't always get that. Like I had media training out the ass when I got started, and like, down to what I wore, what clothes I was wearing, what we talked about in interviews, all of it. Like I was trained to the T so that I came across articulate and and then a lot of that is naturally me, but like that was everybody's concern, was just making sure that I came across articulate and knowledgeable and all those things. And now there's no media training. Like
Right.
you can tell, and it's just like, but we don't have that opportunity. Like I've talked to Mickey before, and the same thing. She had media training and all that stuff. And all the artists that are out here, artists of color that I've talked to, have had someone in their life sit down and talk to them about how to present themselves, and just very thoughtful and mindful about how they come across in media. And I don't feel that same thing from white artists. I just don't, especially white male artists. Like it's just like anything goes.
Yeah.
Anything that comes out of my mouth, that's what it is. And yeah, I don't think, I guess that's my answer to that, is that I have no problem with that. I like some punk music, and I think that there's room for all kinds of creativity. I just wish that artists of color, women artists, marginalized artists had the opportunity to be unpolished and wild and crazy too, and given opportunities as well. That's all.
Right. Well, I guess we're almost to the end. I can only tell you how thankful I am to have this opportunity to talk with you. I would like you to know that since I've been working on this, the teacher has expressed to me because I said it would be great to have like a panel discussion at the school, and I think they'd be willing to pay you and whatever you wanted to do with it. If you wanted to bring some guests and do a Zoom meeting or meet there, I think it'd be great if you could do a discussion and maybe do a performance. But that's only me. I have not the powers to be, but I will. If you are interested, I will pass some information to them, and
Sure,
hopefully it will turn into a little paycheck for something for you and
sure.
whoever involved. And I just want you to know another thing, that even before I even researched this, because I didn't even know anything, I didn't know any aspect of the African American food, but I was saying things like that. Gee, if I could just find an African American female to do country, I can't think of any. There's never been any, you know what I mean? And then I did some research on it, and this is what brought me to you. But if I was even thinking like that, it's just something to think about. But I guess that from what you say, it's just that country music, it's a certain sort of bank and vault it. And if you've got to go through this particular key to get there in the mainstream country world. And if you don't want to play to that game, they pretty much control it. The CMA, the industry, the record executives, the radio, and the press and everything else that goes with it.
It's just, I think that do I think that, like, I don't think there's anybody sitting around like, let's figure out a way to keep black people out. I just don't think that it's not a priority, because it hasn't proven to be like this bankable thing. And so like, why would I waste my time? Why would I possibly alienate a fan base that we already rely on all the time by shoving this diversity thing down their throat when we're already good? Like, we're in the black. So like, why are we why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? I think that's what it is. I just think that there's no real incentive. Like,
Now, what do you think, before I say goodbye, what do you think? How are you? How is the? Let's talk about the African American reception to country music
well,
outside of a southern city or whatever, or a rural area, and look at the cities and the youth, and what is the future of bringing them into this music, or
I
how
think
do you get to it?
well, first of all, okay, so there's two answers to this. Number one, country music hasn't even done the research to even know. Like, they do all kinds of country music does all kinds of research all the time about their audience and who's listening and where they live and what they want to hear and all this kind of stuff. There is no data on black listenership since,
Mm.
I want to say, the 80s. I had Dr. Jada Watson on my show like a year ago, and she was saying there's no recent, I think, like, I want to say the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. That's the last time anybody
That's the
checked.
last time. Oh
So
my.
nobody knows, right? I know anecdotally, but like, nobody knows for sure. There's no concrete numbers. Okay, so there's that. And then this generation, I think, would be the easiest to tap into, because these kids listen to everything. They don't care. Like, they really don't care. Like, as long as it's, as long as they're into it, as long as they can do a TikTok dance to it, whatever. As long as, like, as long as it's fun and it's something that's happening, they don't care. And so like, that's why you've seen the success of like Maren Morris doing songs with like Zed, and you see Kane Brown doing songs with her and with different artists, and like the song Walker Hayes and Fancy like it's a terrible song, but it's it's fun, and the kids are dancing to it, and they're doing TikTok songs. And so I think this generation, black and white, Latinx, whatever, is less discerning about genre and is more interested in like, is it fun? Can I dance to it? Do I like it? Like, do I like this song? I don't think they care. And so if anybody was going to try to cross over, if anybody, I mean, not cross over, but if anybody was ever going to try to reach out to an audience, now is the time.
Right.
Especially with streaming. Like you can put a playlist together that is like the baby and Garth Brooks and like it all just like gumbo. So yeah, I think that this is the time. And I think that if someone really cared, they could do it.
Yeah, I mean, you made a good point because when I was growing up, pop music charts was everything. I mean,
It's
you had,
everything. Right.
you had Creedence Clearwater and Andy Williams on the same
Yes.
same chart.
Right there.
And,
we are right back
and
there.
you know, Buck Owens, or you know, whoever it was.
Yeah. Crosby, we're right back there. And so it's just a matter of, I mean, you see with like the Grammys and like all the controversy that's come up about what's country, what's not, what's Americana, what's not. And in a minute, it's not even going to matter because all these things borrow from each other and all these sounds and all these producers are writing with all these artists. And it's just going to be like just music. Like is this the best song? Is this the best song? It's just, we're getting to a point where genre is almost non-existent.
One last question.
Sure.
Now, I mean, obviously, hip hop and electronic music it dominates the pop music world. And there's even, you know, hybrids of that in country music. There's a whole outlaw country hip hop music. What's your feelings about merging the two together? Do you like it? Does it still represent country to you?
I actually, so funny. The last episode of my radio show was about hip hop and country.
Oh, okay.
And I think, as I said before in the beginning of this conversation, country music is the most thoroughly American genre of music. So is hip hop. And you're going to find that they have a lot more in common than they don't. Where else do you talk about where you're from? Where else do you talk about the kind of car you drive? Or truck you drive? Where else do you talk about like the kind of women you like and whether they're wearing short shorts or not? And
drugs and
yeah, I'm just saying, like
police and
I'm saying, like you talk
anti-establishment. Yeah.
Where else do you go to find the pulse of what is going on in marginalized America, whether that's rural America or inner city America or urban America? And so I think they have a lot more in common. I think rap is folk music. And at its purest form, it's folk music.
I agree with you.
And I think
it's also very, very demographic. I mean, a lot of the expression of hip hop is your neighborhood, your
where
hood,
you're from, right?
It represents the regionality of it. It's just so profound in it. Absolutely.
And that's the thing. I mean, in country, what other music is like that? Country, you got Texas country, you got so. I think this new emerging country hip hop thing that you're hearing is an expression of where these people are from and like what their type of country is. Because Black people live in the South too. Black people live in rural America too. And my expression of country may be slightly different from yours, but it's still country.
Mm-hmm. You know, one other thing I was going to say is they also have never really allowed, I don't think an African-American woman, I haven't really studied it and I don't know Mickey that well, you know, just from the videos. But this ability to be yourself and allow a lot of the, you know, these other things that, you know, like you said, you grew up on gospel and R&B. And I mean, to me, that would be a really strong and effective artist, at least was in the day, probably now today, black, hip hop and the current R&B sound. But back a little bit, it would have been the perfect blend of things to have that combination. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but in country music and shoot, in the music industry, it's a lot more palatable coming from a white body. Like Chris Stapleton. Chris Stapleton sounds like a 72-year-old black man.
Right.
And
But
part of
he looks like a biker,
yes,
a grand sized biker. So it
and he
works.
plays his ass off. And so it's just like it's a more palatable
Yeah,
um package. Just like Leanne Rhymes. We joke about this all the time on my show, but like most of the black artists that come on love Leanne Rhymes. Why do we all love Leanne Rhymes? Because Leanne Rhymes sings extremely soulfully. Like I say this all the time. If there was going to be a black female country singer, it would be Leanne Rhymes. Like she would sound like Leanne Rhymes because she does the runs and she's very soulful, but it's still very country. Like it's the sweet spot. And so it's a lot easier to take those things when it's coming out of a white body.
great. Well, listen, this is a wrap. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the explaining you've done to me, your experiences. I really hope I can articulate, my paper from you as best as I can. And I just thank you so much. Now, your podcast is on Apple, right?
Hmm?
If you don't have Apple, you can't access it, or you
So
can't.
you can listen to it. Okay. So if you have Apple Music, you can listen to it on demand. If you don't have Apple Music, then the show airs on Sundays at 7 o'clock. Every other Sunday. Like today is an off week, so there is no show this
Oh,
week.
okay,
Next
good.
week there is one. And
Every
so
other Sunday.
every other Sunday. So next week is the next episode. It airs at 7 o'clock Eastern. And you can listen for free. Like you don't have to have a Apple Music.
Where do I off your website or off
Yeah,
of?
if you go to so you go to the show page. So go to colormecountry.com.
Okay,
There's a bunch of there's a bunch of like links. They're everywhere. So just click a link that says listen to the show here and it'll take you to the show page and then just follow.
can I also listen to past shows? Like, are they archived
No,
on
you
your
have to
website?
have now that's where you have to have a subscription to Apple Music in
Okay.
order to hear the past shows.
Well, great. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much, and like I said, I'll pass the information. Maybe
Please.
you'll panel and see you there, and hopefully they'll allow you to perform as well and whatever. And you know, more hope for what we'll see in the future, I guess.
I think the power is in the artists, and that's the thing that makes me hopeful. Is I see all these girls forging their own way, so I think that's how it is. But thank you, great questions, and I hope this helps.
Thank you so much again.
No worries. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.